Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez. I'm here with Sauce and we are into preliminary final weekend in the AFL 2022. The final 4 teams left.
3 games to go and it's going to be really exciting, mate. It's the way to end the season. It's going to be a huge final series. 2 massive games this weekend, Pez. And the way that it finished last week, we had a come from behind victory and a bit of an upset, not an upset, but a bit of a one-way traffic sort of game with Collingwood.
Yeah, not so much an upset with Collingwood being at home, but the upset was on the Friday night with the massive comeback, and we get to the final 4 teams with 3 of them actually finishing in the top 4 at the end of the regular season, and 1 team in the Brisbane Lions coming from outside the 8, beating Richmond in a really close one, getting over the line against Melbourne after being 28 points down in that first half, and we come into prelim final weekend where anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and the last couple of weeks have been pretty grueling for Brisbane. We spoke about how they possibly blew a chance of finishing in the top 4, and miraculously they've overcome 2 really tough games in the last 2 reigning premiers, Melbourne and Richmond. And the question is Brisbane, we talked about how they dropped an opportunity to finish top 4. They'd lost a home final and a home prelim opportunity, and now they are 1 win away from a grand final.
Yep, but they have to get their second win at the MCG in about 8 years, but they got over that hoodoo last week. And speaking of last week, we do have to speak about the semi-final, Source, because they were so intriguing. We had Friday night, I was there at the footy, sitting there in the AFL members, so many Demon supporters, and I didn't hear from the Brisbane supporters until a little bit later because it was a hot start from the Demons, like it usually has been this year, where they get that little bit of momentum, they start dominating, their pressure's really good, and then it ended up just falling away. But they were electric. There was a lot of things going on in the prelim. We had the Queen's...
half mast, minute silence.
The veil or whatever it was, it was good to see. There was the darkness at the MCG and all that. Walking up to the MCG, we saw that it was purple all the way around the MCG, and some of the fans were like, "What are they doing? Fremantle's not playing tonight." But I think it had something to do with the Queen as well. I heard the next day, so that's why the MCG lights were purple around there. But
maybe they were blue and representing the $10 note, because they're going to have to change that. Oh no, she's on the 5, isn't she? Never mind. I'll be quiet.
She's on the 5, and
maybe she was a Fremantle supporter
on the $2 coin, I think, which the currency might change as well. Source after the death.
Good old King William.
King Charles, I think.
King Charles. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know too much.
Monarchy doesn't really interest me.
Royal family, but the footy does interest me. And sitting there around, the atmosphere wasn't like an elimination final or a semi-final that I've seen in the past. And I think it's because of the teams that were in it. And I'm speaking more so of Melbourne, Source. And you went at the game, but seeing the Melbourne supporters around, there wasn't too much excitement. Like they were pretty cocky when they were about 4 goals up, and they're sitting there going, "Oh yeah, we're doing this. We're going to scroll on Instagram and do all of that." And then Brisbane got to within a goal in the third quarter, Source, and the Melbourne fans didn't cheer or didn't stand up or didn't clap. The ones around me and the ones even around the ground. It seemed like the only time they really did a loud cheer is when they had a picture of Jack Viney on the big scoreboard saying "make some noise," like before a bounce, and that's the only time they would do it. So a little bit of history with the Melbourne supporters.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because when watching on tally and in that third quarter, when Brisbane hit the front and they ran up by a goal, and then Melbourne went down the other end and kicked 2 goals back to back to regain the lead, the noise levels on the TV, it didn't actually seem like it was a swinging game. And no. I think if Melbourne had gotten behind, the lads out there playing, and they could have regained control. And Brisbane, when they came on that, the momentum and the noise from the Brisbane fans and the Brisbane faithful for being an away game at the MCG, the Fitzroy supporters were out and about. It definitely didn't feel like a Melbourne home game. They were playing in front of 80,000, D supporters, as we spoke last week, who have been deprived of watching their success in finals.
Exactly right. They won the premiership at SBS Stadium last year. You could call it a Mickey Mouse premiership now. And then they come back here. They've lost 2 games at the MCG as hot favourites after giving up a lead to 2 interstate clubs. It's been a really disappointing season from them. Luke Jackson has requested a trade over to WA, so they're in a bit of turmoil. So
That's because they win premierships over there.
We'll speak about Melbourne in the off-season there. But the big reason I knew that the Melbourne supporters just have no interest is Harrison Petty versus Dane Zorko. Now, we know what happened last time they played. Dane Zorko's given him a bit of banter.
A little bit. I don't know if it was banter.
He's gone a bit too far.
A little bit too far.
And Harrison Petty obviously had tears. He was crying about it because it, cut him deep and things like that. And that's fair enough. It's all right to do that. He's showing emotion, all good. It comes to the game on the 50-metre line, the other side. It was Petty and Zorko on top of each other. Now, I don't know if you noticed this on TV, but they're wrestling each other. Mm-hmm. And then there's a little bit of hustle and bustle. The ball gets balled up. Petty runs back. Zorko's there at the contest. The ball gets a quick kick from Brisbane into Brisbane's forward line. Harrison Petty takes the intercept mark. And it was silence.
Wow.
I would have thought if that was a Collingwood player and it was the exact same situation, they would have lifted the MCG up.
I mean, in fairness to the Melbourne supporters, they were probably halfway through cutting their camembert and putting on their cracker at that stage.
You say that. I tried to look around and I couldn't see any Melbourne supporters with the cheese, which is disappointing.
But, it sort of speaks to the culture of football, and when you look at different supporter bases and the way they react, and the part that the fan plays in, you look at quite often, the noise of affirmation, and that's one thing that really has let Melbourne down, because when teams are coming, the momentum shift this year has been incredible into the fan base plays a huge part in that, Pez, and Melbourne needed their supporters, but what Melbourne really needed to do was address some of the deficits that they've had all year. That forward line, the way that they had a lead, they got challenged through the strategy of the game, and they were unable to respond, and it resulted in the Lions kicking 12 of the final 17 goals to give up not only a top 4 opportunity, Pez, and a premiership to defend their title, but to go out in straight sets. And you bring up last year's premiership, the asterisk premiership, because it was during not a COVID affected year. It was a COVID affected year, but it sort of wasn't. But it raises some questions about this dynasty and this list, and it goes back to the point I made last week, Pez. I just don't trust this Melbourne list, and I think we are over gratifying how well that they played last year in isolation.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like they got towed up a little bit because Stephen May, he was dominating early. Brisbane were under so much pressure in the midfield that they would just bomb the ball over their shoulder, bomb it as far as they can. They tried to get the ball in Daniel Rich's hands as much as they could, and nothing was working for them going forward. Melbourne were able to go the other way, but they were only able to get 6 goals there in that first half, and it just wasn't enough in the end. And Darcy Fort gave Max Gawn an absolute bath, coming in as a ruckman pair with Fullerton, where Danaher and McInerney were out, McInerney with illness and Danaher to the birth of his child. It was unbelievable what happened.
It was unbelievable, and that was your buzzer, Pez. That was the timeout. I actually don't know what that noise is.
I've never heard that
from my laptop, but obviously it's a good point. We're going to the ESPN's takedown. When you get a good point, boom, nice little point there. But it's interesting you bring that up because the way that the game unfolded, Joe Danaher being out, and going to the birth of his daughter and his first child,
Thought
5
really
weeks
early.
Well, it did hurt them early, but it actually played into Brisbane's hand a little bit because it forced May to play on, a more mobile forward, and we spoke about the ways the blueprint to beat Melbourne, and it sort of fell into their hands.
Yeah, they were able to move the ball. They were able to apply pressure to Melbourne, get the intercept, and then go. They started taking some risks through the middle, and they started running past. And the way Brisbane won the game was dominating in the centre square and dominating in the middle of the ground source. What they did, quick handball out, quick handball, not just one, not just 2. It was 3 or 4 quick handballs out until you get to the free player because the intensity was so high. Once they got to that free player, though, they were gone. They were gone 45-degree angles, bang, 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 and just got some shots at goals. It got some really easy scores, some running into open goals and things like that.
Yeah, they were definitely outcoached in that second half. When Brisbane were coming, Melbourne were unable to not only adjust, but to stop the flow. And sometimes that's the most important thing is when your team is getting crumbled or when the momentum is shifting, take control of the game, take some poise. But Brisbane just avoided, going into the hands of the defence, which that's where it all starts from, that poise and setting up. And as you said, they used the angles, they set up some open goals through just some out the back, not out the back. It wasn't even out the back.
It was set up.
It was set up so that those smaller forwards and those more running big men that Brisbane have could actually dominate. And it was good to see, Pez, because Brisbane have deserved this over the last couple of years and have really let themselves down. And there's a little bit of momentum that they're taking into the MCG this week against Geelong. And look, they're a scary side to face, because when they are up and about, we know that they can score quickly, we know they can pile it on, and we know that they can hurt you from a range of different angles, especially in that forward line.
Yeah, and usually with the underdog team going into any final, you say nothing to lose here. The thing to lose is the preliminary final for Brisbane, but they've got no pressure on them in terms of expectation. So that they get to go in, free hit, to try and get into the grand final, the MCG, and we know anything can happen on grand final day especially. Speaking more so to Melbourne, I think May was really good in the first half. Lever was really good in defence in the second half, but then when they kept the ball away from him, he was no good. Melbourne's big problem was when they did get the ball forward, they had no one to kick it to. They were trying to kick it to Ben Brown up on the wing, and maybe after the first quarter and a half, his hands just turned to jelly, and the ball just kept going to the ground, and it just wasn't good for Melbourne. And they don't have that big key forward. We spoke last week on the podcast to bring either Sam Wiedemann or Tom McDonald in. I heard Tom McDonald wasn't actually available, but Sam Wiedemann, they had to bring another forward in there, and it really would have helped their structure, and we could be talking about a different winning side this week.
We spoke about it last week, that the thing that Melbourne struggle with all year is that their reliance on Bailey Fritsch, who kicked 50 goals back-to-back years. Great job for him, but he's your key forward, he's your reliance of person to kick goals. It's not enough, and it was very prevalent on the weekend and the week before against Sydney, that when you are not firing that one target, you get exposed, you get called out, and it's disappointing for the rest of the league, Pez, because if they don't address this going forward in this trade period, they're going to have the same narrative next year. So that has to be highlighted in their drafting going up and looking at their trade period coming up in this year. So it's something that you hope that they address, but for the rest of the league, it's kind of good that they didn't.
Yeah, it is good that they didn't. And Fritsch, great forward, and an absolutely amazing all-Australian calibre mid forward, which is the third forward. Yeah. Not number one, not number two.
He would be amazing with two other dominant forwards, or even just one other dominant forward to sort of take that second defender. But he gets your number one defender, and he does a great job with it, but it's not enough.
No. And Cozzy Pickett, he kicked a couple of, I guess you could call miracle goals off the pack, and those were two of the goals that Melbourne got in that first half. It was not great.
And then you need to lift from that, though. That's where the lift needs to come. That's where the belief comes.
The crowd wasn't that loud.
Nah, it didn't get involved. They could have taken everything out of the game, like the Collingwood game, which we're about to speak next, because those first 3 or 4 goals in that Collingwood game, that was it. That was all over Red Rover. There was no chance that Fremantle were coming back, playing away, just like Brisbane were, and going to a stadium full of 90,000 crazy Collingwood supporters.
Yep. So from the wrap up from that, Melbourne dynasty over, really disappointing.
Dynasty was never there, Pez. It was never there.
Straight sets, exit, and I'm really happy that the two girls that were sitting in front of me who were scrolling, I don't know what they were doing, Instagram or messaging, whatever they were doing, they can piss off and go home like they left early in the fourth quarter because...
Left early?
Yeah, they had a little bit of chirp going on in that first quarter between each other, and they just pissed me off a little bit sitting around. You know that feeling with Melbourne supporters, Sauce, and I'm glad that they... took the early exit and got home early, tucked into bed. It was very good to see.
You should have interrupted them and told them to give Behind the Boundary a bit of a follow there, and that could have kept their night entertaining.
They would have loved it. But you do speak of Collingwood versus Fremantle and the domination that Collingwood displayed. They ended up winning by 20 points in the end, which wasn't a reflection of the game because it was absolute domination. Over 90,000 people for a team at the MCG playing against Fremantle, an interstate club. These Collingwood fans, they're mental.
Yeah, you spoke about it should have been more. In that second quarter, they kicked 2-6 and still were in extreme control. But a 20-point victory in finals is more like a 50-point victory because in that fourth quarter, it was just cruise control. It was just managing bodies, making sure they weren't getting injured and trying to rest a little bit for an exciting, a prelim final against Sydney.
Yeah, Fremantle kicked the last 3 goals, I think. They're up by 38 points. Didn't mean anything, but one of those goals was to David Mundy, which was good that he could be sent off the MCG. Really emotional moment with his son there at the end, and then he was able to get cheered off and carried off. And the Pies fans, as much as they're annoying, they absolutely get out in numbers and are one of the best fans for a club, one of the most hated clubs in the land, and they just get around them. And they're going to make their way up in numbers at the SCG, and they might even outnumber the Sydney supporters up there.
Yeah, there's a good possibility with that, but not only the huge performance from the crowd, some of the big performers from the game. You know, we talk of Jack Ginnivan, who kicked 3 goals in early stages of the game when it really mattered as well. A great first goal, you know, nice little crumbing work. You know, despite all the criticism he gets and the bad hate that he gets, Pez, he's actually a really good football player, and it's a shame that he can't just focus on that and he'd be a bit more lovable. But Jamie Elliott, he had a fantastic game, another 2 goals, 15 disposals. But the man of the moment, you as a St Kilda supporter would be absolutely hating because De Goey had another massive final series, another massive finals game, 24-1, but he was huge, and another big reason, the first week that they were competitive against Geelong, the reason they took the lead against Fremantle and never let go of it really. Yeah,
I actually really like the way Jordan De Goey's playing in this final series. There's not a lot of talk from the outside. There's not the pictures or the videos from going out on the weekend. It seems like he's all business this final series. Good. And he just wants to play footy. And the way he was exploding from packs and then hitting the target inside 50, he is an absolute superstar. If he can just keep his mind in it for a season, he can be up there and contend for a Brownlow medal if he's fit enough. Like, that's how good this guy could be.
Yep.
And if he's in a St Kilda jumper, I'm very happy to pay the price because we can't attract anyone down at St Kilda. So that'd be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing for you and for football. But you love when you're seeing these guys and bounce back. And Collingwood are in a tough spot because you go back 6 weeks, 7 weeks ago before he was in this sort of form, and you could see him not getting a contract extension. There's now 900 on the table, they reckon, and it'll be obviously the year dependent. But why would you want to leave? As we said, a crowd like this, one of the whilst most hated football clubs, one with such a massive legacy, in our sports. And well, with the Queen passing away over the week, the last 4 times that we've had a Monarch replacement, we've had a Collingwood premiership. So a nice little voodoo for De Goey and Collingwood supporters.
I saw that stat. So Collingwood make the grand final then this year, if you can believe it. But Jack Crisp is another one. Hasn't missed a game since 2014. And
not a bad streak.
Was involved in Brisbane's last win at the MCG before the weekend as well. But he had an absolute gun of a game, 24 disposals and 2 goals, and he just fits in nicely there. It was a long kick, from when they recruited him from Brisbane. They were really happy with him as a young guy, and that's when Brisbane couldn't keep a hold of anyone. And then now Brisbane are actually holding people, whereas you look at a team like GWS, where they're just a feeder club now, where players are going there and then heading to other ones. So another discussion for the off-season.
Massive discussion for the off-season, which we definitely will discuss over that, Pez. But I think there's nothing else to discuss but to get into how we did last week and to get into the most important of the show, which is the bet slip. Do you want to get into it straight away?
Yeah, go to the review.
Yeah, cool. I will, definitely. Just stall a little bit for me. There we go.
Soft review. It's no official review. How does it end? We don't know. They've kind of lost, but they've won as well.
I did think you were going to be the one that was going to be stalling this week because for the second week in a row, just like Melbourne Demons, straight sets for you.
Oh,
straight sets.
What do you mean?
0-4.
0-4?
Yeah. 0-4 back-to-back weeks.
Oh, yeah, big loss for me this week, isn't it?
Well, hey, still, that's a second donut. Building a 6-pack over there, are you?
Yeah, well, I said about finals betting at the start of it, and I just bet really with my heart last week and just tried to get big odds, used 3 bonuses, so I only had 1 unit staked out and ended up losing that unit. But the way I lost that unit as well, I'll get into that in that first game, that was heartbreaking. Yeah. I mean, talk us through. Just go straight into it because I'm all green over here and going to be talking about the win. So let's just get you to do it. Well, I had Brisbane plus 20.5, down by 28 points, not looking good. They ended up winning the game, so that was good. I also had them plus 56, and I had under 165.5. The game was so low scoring that I thought this had no chance of getting over. It ends up going over, like there's 5 minutes to go. It's still 146. There needed to be 4 goals kicked in the last 5 minutes of footy. And there ended up being 5 goals kicked. So it was kind of like, well, everyone just shit the bed in the under here. I thought 165 was a great number. I'm sitting there in the third quarter
It
going,
was really high.
if Brisbane can stay within 20, this is one, this is there. So it didn't happen. I escaped with a bonus, but that was the weirdest total bet. And anytime there's a total bet and you have a really great position, it can turn at any time. So what you do is you probably have to hedge.
Did you hedge?
No, I didn't. I was at the game, just enjoying it. Under 165, I reckon I could have got an over 130, over 132 at one stage.
Yeah.
And hedge it and hit the middle would have been a massive opportunity. Didn't do it, didn't happen, lost the unit.
So what you're talking about there is jumping on another agency because you don't want to be doing the hedging your bet on the same betting agency,
No.
calling up a live bet, jumping on. And it's a good also way to sort of monitor how your bet is going as well. You know, if you're looking early in the game and you're not sure, you don't want to do the old subtraction from the total or the old calculator out like I used to do. And you can check that and monitor your bet as well as looking at forward to see if, if there's a hedge opportunity. So a really, really good place and a good strategy as well.
Yeah, if you've got a 20-point spread or something that you can jump on and try and hit the middle, it means you win both bets and you profit even bigger and you minimise your risk because you lose very minimal once you do that as well. So you've got to try and take advantage of that when you can.
You can, Pez. And I took advantage of exactly what we spoke about it, the way that Brisbane was going to win. I sort of hedged myself a little bit. I had Lockie Neal to get 25 disposals, Hugh McCluggage to kick a goal out of the centre. He kicked one of those 12 to help them get back that lead. And Brisbane plus 40.5. That had 2 units on that one at 292, a nice little profit of 146 there.
Yeah, beautiful. You're going to love that. I had a bonus bet, Brisbane to lead every quarter, which is paying $7. I just wanted the higher odds. Should have put it on Brisbane 1 to 39, which you could get 540 at one stage, but wasn't to be. I'll take the cross for the bonus and continue on.
Speaking of a cross for the bonus, I got one in the next game. I had Fremantle plus 43.5, which looked in big trouble at one stage. Caleb Sarong with 25 disposals. He was amazing with 32. And Fremantle for the win, so they didn't show up as we spoke. 2 units on that one. I did escape with a bonus bet.
Yep, bonus bet to use in prelim final weekend. Not too bad at all. Any other Brisbane bets for you?
Yeah, I did have one. Sorry, the way you've done the bet slip was a little bit odd because you had my Melbourne bet and then you had a Fremantle and Collingwood bet. And then you had my other two
one bet
ones.
per game.
That's fine. So I had Brisbane with my bonus bet plus 18.5. They got that, of course, with a win. And McCluggage to get more disposals than Viney at $2. And I had 2 units on that one.
What a game
so
from
tick,
McCluggage.
tick, tick.
And what a call from you in the same game multi as well with the McCluggage anytime goal scorer. You would have thought when he kicked that huge goal to put them, I think, within a point or maybe even in the lead.
It was right before that.
He kicked a massive goal running into the 50.
That's exactly what I said.
And then
Even
Brisbane 40 plus 40, it was no risk.
I will admit when Danaher went down, I thought, I'm in a bit of trouble here because I think that they won't have that long bomb approach because they won't be so focused on it. But yeah, that's exactly where they got their comeback and worked out for me.
Yeah, very good. I move on to my Fremantle bonus that I put on, and I just put Fremantle to lead it every quarter. I think it was more hopeful than anything, as I spoke about last week, because I just love going for the interstate clubs against Melbourne clubs in the finals.
Any other bets for that game? Because I've spoken through all mine.
Just the multi.
Yeah, I haven't spoken through that one. I meant through the actual individual games.
That's all for me.
Well, for the multi, I had Brisbane and Fremantle. The Pez hates interstate clubs. Sorry, Pez hates the home clubs, and the Pez betting special, the hatred multi of just Brisbane and Freo, as we spoke about. Brisbane got it, Fremantle did not, so a loss of 0.4 units for that.
I had the same as well, and here's another opportunity for the punters out there of where you can hedge source. If you've got a multi and you've got a 2-leg multi, 3-leg multi, 4-leg multi, whatever it is. Say you've got a 4-leg multi like we usually do in the season. Yep. Your first 3 legs win and your last leg is sitting there and you've got a hot favourite to win like $1.30, $1.40, whatever it might be. You look at what you've staked, you look at what you win, you can actually put an amount on the underdog to win. So no matter what the result is, you will profit either way. If you wanted to minimise your risk. If you want to go for it all, you go for it all, and that's why you punt. But here, we had 2 underdogs, 2 pretty big underdogs. Brisbane got the win on the Friday night. We could have jumped on the Collingwood, was it $2 special at wherever it was, Pickle Bet last week?
No, it was Mint Bet.
Mint Bet. Jump on, put your 50 on at $2, try and double your money there, and then I would have been risking $50 and would have got 100 back instead of trying to go for Fremantle to try and get 199 back from risking a bonus. So I didn't do it, but that's just for future listeners and future punters, that's something you can start to think about.
And it's something we probably don't do on the podcast because it's really hard in that real time to be continually hedging. It could get a little bit confusing, but it is a really good strategy if you're looking at making a bit of coin out of this. Speaking of making a bit of coin, talk us through how much coin you made this week.
Yeah, so I staked a grand total of 1 unit, which has to be the lowest staked total for the season for any of us. Returned 0 units, so I lost 1 unit for the week.
Yeah, cool.
So not great. Off my 4 bets, 3 of them being bonuses from the week before. So my year to date staked 220.2 units, returned 296.16. So that would have been nice to go over to 300, but it didn't. Profit of loss of plus 75.96 units for the season.
Yeah, it could have been 297, mate. It's a little bit disappointing.
Right.
For me, this week I staked 6.4 units, returned 11.84 units.
Ooh, there we go.
A profit loss of 5.44. And, as we've spoken about, it's been a really impressive year for us. Staked for the year for me, 201 units, returned 242.59, a profit loss of 41.35. Total of, what's that? There's 116?
Yep.
116 units if you followed all of our bets, which is really remarkable.
Yeah, after 2 donut weeks from me, which is unheard of, but we'll continue to go. And 116 profit for the year. If you're whatever number better you are, you would have made a handy little profit.
You definitely would have. Speaking of profit, let's get into how you can make some more profit if you follow Sources bets and not Pez's.
The fact that the size of the bets was relatively small.
Our bets with an opportunity about 50 metres out.
I was with a mate and we were getting sort of ready to leave, and he said, I think I'm going to whack 10 on Maxi. Do you want some as well? And I said,
Oh, yes!
Yes, please.
Yes, please. What? You'd like some specials?
Sino takes a special and goes bang.
That's an odd way to intro the segment, just saying, yes, please.
Oh, well, Heath Shaw there saying that he just said, oh, yes, with Bruce coming in at the end. It's always very, very special. Nothing much has changed this week in terms of specials. So Sportsbet, they've got the 3+ leg same game multi. So do Ladbrokes, where you can include $2 lines. There's $2 lines over at Ned's with the 3+ leg same game multi as well. Same thing at Tab. We've got Bet365 with the normal footy multi-bet offer, which you can't really do with only the 2 games. Well, you can, but you only get 5% increase. And the 32-point up special, which Melbourne nearly would have got the 32 points up and lost, but it didn't happen. They were only 28. Bluebet have the 12 points up at halftime, which is really good. I assume PointsBet would still have that as well. So anyone that bet on Melbourne last week, they were up by 12 at halftime, and then Brisbane won. So PointsBet, Bluebet, they would have had to pay out on both head-to-head teams, which is good. We love it. We love to see when the bookies lose like that. So 12+ points, multi-bonus, and footy bonus. I didn't see any other specials from Bluebet, and I don't have anything from Moneyball Source.
Yeah, I've got the Moneyball. They're going with their head-to-heads. It is early in the week. It is Wednesday, so before the teams have been released, so that's where all the other specials will come out. On the Friday night, you've got Stewart versus Rich, Geelong versus, I was about to say Richmond then, Geelong versus...
That's a great matchup.
Brisbane. Stewart versus Rich. It's a really great matchup, head-to-head. Both of them average about 24 for the year. Rich having a massive game last week and the first week of finals. Stewart actually kept quiet. So $2 odds on either of those to outplay the other one and get more disposals. Max bet of $50.01.
It's kind of a toss of the coin. Where's the ball going to spend more time? Geelong going to play a slow brand of footy and go across half-back? Stewart takes a lot of marks. You'd have to wait and see, because Brisbane, all they wanted to do last week from the back line is get the ball in Rich's hand to use that booming left boot.
Yeah, and I don't think that will be, and we'll talk about this when we get into the game, Pez. The other one is Warner versus Crisp in the Sydney versus Collingwood game. Warner having more disposals throughout the season. First week of finals, only had 17. Crisp averaging about 24 all the way through, and a massive first 2 weeks for Crisp in the final series.
Had a couple of big games. He's in the news a bit, so I think he'd be a favourite there, even though they're both paying $2.
It's even money, so $2 each way.
Yeah, but a favourite.
Just wanted to explain the way that works for you.
Yeah, you can piss off.
All right, speaking of pissing off, well, let's get straight into the action. There's two games, two massive games. Winners go into a grand final and losers go home. And there's no gallant losers in this because, right as you said before, everything is on the line. There is no second chance. Brisbane taking on Geelong at the MCG. This is going to be a huge game. Friday night clash. $1.30 favourites are the Cats, the smallest favourite of the weekend. Brisbane outsiders at $3.45. The line is minus 21.5. The over-under 158.5. As you said, Pez, very small, that one.
Yeah, the day has finally come because I can finally go against Geelong. Geelong have only played against Collingwood in the final series, and my hatred for Collingwood outweighs my hatred for Geelong, so I was going heavily for Geelong then. But yeah, interstate club, Victorian club, get up the Lions, let's go. One more. Kick Geelong out. They've had a struggle with prelims over the last 10 years under Chris Scott Sauce. They've lost a hell of a lot of finals leading up, including a grand final in 2020, and they kind of just need to get over that hurdle with the list they've got. They're set up perfectly for it at the MCG against the Brisbane Lions in a prelim. If last week you could have chosen who won, you'd probably choose the Brisbane Lions to play, and Geelong get the opportunity. Do you think you guys have a good shot to win it?
I mean, it's ours to lose. There's a lot of pressure on Geelong here because obviously going straight, finishing top of the ladder. They've won the last 14 of the games of the AFL season. Everything points to Geelong win, but as you said, not only have they not performed in the prelim, but they haven't performed after buys. You can look back at the last 5 or 6 years throughout buys, specifically finals, that week 1 bye. They really struggle in that first quarter. Brisbane is one of those teams that take out the game against Richmond. You don't want to give up an early lead because if they can get that momentum going, especially playing away, they can pile on quickly. I am more confident in Geelong than I was against Collingwood. Geelong, beating Brisbane rather than the Collingwood game. But saying that, depends which Geelong rocks up.
Yeah, is Chris Scott going to play Selwood and Dangerfield on the bench again? This is a massive game, a must-win game. Needs to do it. I think the thing that separates Geelong from Brisbane at the moment, even with Danaher coming back into the side, is Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron. And Jeremy Cameron more so, who's able to get up the ground. He is an amazing shot for goal. And I think set shot goal kicking will come into play. The likes of Stengel, Gary Rowan, Tom Hawkins, can he kick him from the boundary? You got Jeremy Cameron there. And then up the other end, because that's been a hindrance for Brisbane for a while. You got Joe Danaher, who likes to take set shots from a long way out. Eric Hipwood, who's been better in the last few weeks. Lincoln McCarthy, Charlie Cameron. These set shot goal kicking. Cam Rayner, who missed another simple one last week from about 15 out. It's just the pressure's going to be there. There's going to be 75,000 there at least, and they just have to go through their motion, try and kick the goal like it's not a final, but the pressure's there, and who is going to kick straighter?
Yeah, who's going to kick straighter? Who's going to get more opportunities as well? Because the way that you beat Geelong is by controlling the football. It is running them and beating them off a turnover.
Not used to losing Geelong this year.
No, but it is the way to beat them. When teams run against them, you've seen against Collingwood, when they run and they really put that defence to work in terms of not allowing them to set up their structure, you give yourself a great opportunity. So that run and gun game and a little bit how they beat Melbourne with the long kick, they're going to have to adjust again, Brisbane, which playing back-to-back weeks, their bodies are tired. 2 really, really tough, high-intensity games. It's going to be really tough for them to play a different brand of football again, and I guess that's the luxury of finishing top in terms of Geelong. They can just go about their business. Brisbane, 3 weeks in a row, they've had to adjust depending on the opponent, and it's worked. So the belief will be there. They've got nothing to lose. They're one of the best attacking teams in the league. They can hurt you from many different ways, but they are coming up against the number 1 ranked defence. So it'll be a very interesting game, and I think it'll be a lot closer than the bookies have it.
Yeah, well, in the middle of the ground is going to be a big battle. In the ruck, especially. Like, Darcy Fort had a massive game last week, but he's probably maybe going to get dropped. And Oscar McInerney comes back in, and Joe Danaher comes back in, and Fullerton goes out as well. So we'll have to wait and see on the selection, because Darcy Fort, he kind of deserves to keep his spot, but you can only play 22 players, so you go from there. Lachie Neale's shown some heart this final series. Zorko's played really well. Jared Berry last week played the best half of football I've ever seen from an AFL player. I'm watching it live and then coming home and watching the replay. You can actually appreciate what he was able to do for that club. Winning the ball in the middle, keeping Oliver to low disposals, getting Oliver a little bit fired up, a little bit angry, and getting suspended for a week as well, which he has got off and gets to come in this week. But do you think they play Berry in the middle right from the start with his performance in the second half last week?
I mean, what made him effective last week, he was sort of borderline tagging a little bit, wasn't he? Sort of put himself around the football there, that hard sort of, not tagging, but he was just following every round and beating his opponent. I mean, Geelong don't have that person, but his success in the midfield the last 2 weeks, you sort of have to put him in there, I think. You get the inclusion of the big O in that ruck so that, you're going to get first opportunity at the ball if you have the numbers around it. And I think it's prevalent for them to control that middle. And we saw last week when they controlled the middle against Melbourne, they're off to the races. And I think that's what they have to do.
Yeah, those in-tight handballs, Geelong's going to have to bring the pressure. And, Geelong's got a strong defence. They're strong all over the ground. But this is what we get to. We get to the final four teams, and we've usually got the four strongest teams left. And we've got two really strong teams battling out the MCG. I'm going to bet with my heart again.
So you expect another donut, are we?
We'll go a 3-leg same-game multi with Neds because they offer the $2 lines. So I've gone Brisbane plus 58.5 is the alternate handicap. And I've also put the $2 line in there plus 22.5, hoping they can at least keep it close or have a shot to win it. And I've gone the alternate over points of 138.5. Those three together get me $2.76 as a price boost. Put the 2 units on there, and we'll see what comes back from that.
Yeah, best of luck for that one, but Pez, I really hope it doesn't win. I've gone a 3-leg same-game multi. I'm over the Cats. I think they've been the best team in the year. I think they're set up to win this.
Everyone's shocked.
I think for the first time in a long time, though, you look at this Geelong side and it's hard to find some flaws. They were tested week 1 from a team that most people probably didn't think they would test them. So I think that they come out a little bit more prepared. They come out wary of their opposition. But I think the bigger bodies of Geelong and the more rested bodies really go in the favour of Geelong, and hopefully they can set up for another grand final appearance. I've gone with 3-leg same-game multi, as I said. Geelong head-to-head. Geelong pick your own line, plus 12.5 there. So just a little bit of insurance, because if they do lose, it will be close. And I've gone Isaac Smith, anytime goal scorer. For the years, averaged 2.3 shots per game, kicked one in the first final, and has finals experience, and seems to handle the pressure a lot better than most Geelong players. So expect him to have a nice little long bomb from a nice little long bomb. There's an oxymoron.
Even gave Geelong a nice win when he had a chance to.
Yeah. Isaac Smith. That's the only time that we with the Geelong defence again. So a key to winning. I've gone 1 unit on that at $2.62. So that's my bet in that game.
There you go. I've actually got another bet in that game, but
thought you might.
Not because I wanted to. I actually wanted to put a same game multi on across both games, but by the time I put it in, I split my bonus in two on Neds. It didn't quite work out. So I've got a 5-leg same game multi here.
Cheeky.
There we go.
It's pretty cheeky. We've got Lincoln McCarthy, anytime goal scorer. Had a little bit of a down week last week.
Against his old side too.
Charlie Cameron to kick 2+ goals. Because if they do that, Brisbane Lions have a better chance of winning. So I'll put Brisbane to win. And Daniel Rich to get 20+. If he doesn't get 20+, barring injury, they don't have a shot at winning either, because he really drives their run forward from defence. And I've gone over the 158.5 on offer to be a little bit higher scoring than previous weeks, paying $17.35. I'll put half a unit bonus on that because I've had to split it with the other game.
So when you put $12.50 on it?
Yep.
Yeah, nice. I've gone. I like your confidence. I do like the over in that game, though. I do like the over in this. I think it's quite low for both teams being quite free. If we expect a free-flowing game of football and it's goal for goal, well, it'll be an absolute shootout. It'll be over. And I also think if Geelong get a hold of Brisbane, we know that prelim finals, generally they pile it on when it's that moment of loss and when
the other team
gives up. So I like that one there. I've gone something in this game sort of, Pez, but it's not in this game exactly. I've gone just because I want to explain the thinking of it. I've gone with Geelong to win the premiership because at the moment they're sitting $2, Sydney's sitting $3, and then the other outsiders are sitting, I think it's $3.50 and $6 for Brisbane. And I think it's really good odds because I think Geelong win this game and they at least have a 50-50 shot next week. Next week, you're not getting Geelong at $2 odds to beat whoever they play, whether it be Sydney or Collingwood. Tradition would say if it's against Sydney, it'll probably be $1.90, $1.80. They may be even a little bit lower, maybe $1.60. Sydney coming outside $2.20.
You might not get Geelong at all next week.
No, you might not. But I do believe that they win this week. I've put my money where that is. So if I trust in my strategy and I trust in what I'm punting for, and I believe they're going to win, I'm giving myself a free hit next week at $2, and you're not going to get that next week.
So you're kind of multing whatever odds they're paying this week into a grand final win, which is 2 games. They've got to win 2 for you to win. So you go from there, paying $2. We'll whack that into the bet slip at Behind the Bound on Twitter to see everything there. Are we ready to move on to the next game?
We are ready to move on to the next game. Pairs, the next one is Sydney taking on Collingwood. Surprising this one. A lot of Geelong fans upset at the SCG. No, just kidding.
I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to mention it.
It's pretty ridiculous that they've got a stadium next door that is fully built for a start, and they're going to be playing a game at a stadium that can only hold 46,000.
Yeah, so 46,000. A lot of the Geelong supporters very, very unhappy on Twitter because they want to play at Cardinia Park.
They do want to play at Alphabet Stadium.
How many can...
I think with the construction at the moment, it's 35 or something like that. But after construction, it'll probably be close to the 50.
Because they want it to be fair. But what they don't realise is the AFL have a contractual agreement with the MCG.
Yep.
And it hasn't happened often. But the Brisbane Lions, in the early 2000s, I think it was 2004 or something, played a home prelim against another interstate club.
Yeah.
But they had to come down to the MCG because they must have a game on prelim final weekend at the MCG.
And they were lucky in that regard because they could say that Fitzroy and Brisbane, they actually do have not home games, but Fitzroy, that could be their home game. There would have been a bit of strife if it was a West Coast Fremantle game and they had to play it at the MCG, for example.
WA fans.
Or you have an Adelaide game. Imagine that, but taking that away, that's the prelim and they're going down to the MCG. But it was only a throwaway comment. I totally love what Sydney have done with this one and tried to, maximise the amount of Sydney people there. They'll get a free range at it, but as you said, there'll be a lot of Collingwood supporters get up there, though. The crowd last week was electric for the Sydney game.
Yeah, but it was. But 90,000 at Collingwood Fremantle, and there's a bus source. If you want to go up there, did you see the bus?
Yeah,
$200 for a ticket. You get on the bus 1 a.m. Southern Cross Station. You drive up, go to Sydney. They'll drop you off at the game. Leave at 11 p.m. that night on the way back. Yeah. That is a party bus if Collingwood win, or that is a 8 hours of silence on the way home if they lose.
So it's I'm not going to go into the stats, but I can guarantee. What are the odds for the crime rate to be down that night for the last 10 years?
It'll be down in Victoria, but up in Sydney.
They'll be on the bus travelling.
Up in Sydney, it's going to rise a bit at the surface.
All right. Speaking of rise, let's talk about Collingwood and Sydney. Collingwood definitely have risen from the grave last year, finishing 17th. Craig McRae's done a fantastic job at getting them to a prelim final, one of the highest finishing appearances and succession rates from a team that finished in the bottom 4 ever. Sydney taking on Collingwood. 138 favourites are the Swans. 305 outsiders are the Magpies. Minus 17.5 is the line. Over under 164.5 pairs, which I think the bookies have right. They have that one right, I think.
You like the line?
I do like the line, bang on 164. I couldn't find either way to where that goes because I think this game is completely... it's a bit of a coin flop what's going to happen because Sydney could come out and absolutely dominate like they did earlier in round 22.
Coin flop, is it going to land on its side or something?
Yeah, it's because of flop, because if the other side happens and Collingwood win, it'll definitely be a flop for everyone because it'll be a very disgruntled Victoria. So that's what I meant with that one. So thanks for setting me up there.
When the Collingwood bus gets back on Saturday night, if they win, can I jump back on the bus and head to Sydney for a week just so I don't have to listen to it? All right. I made the mistake in week 1 of the finals and I liked the Geelong line and it was about 16.5. So very similar to the Sydney Collingwood. And the right bet there in hindsight was Geelong 1-39.
Yep.
So this week I've just gone it. Don't love it always, but tight final, SCG, you'd think it's going to be lower scoring than it usually would be. I've got Sydney Swans to win 1-39. Over 134, and then Sydney just to win as the third throwaway leg.
I like that.
As a bit of insurance. 251.
That's great odds.
With the price boost, I put the 2 units on it, and I just plead to the Sydney Swans to please win this preliminary final.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. everyone in Victoria who's not a Collingwood supporter is hoping that Sydney can do justice to the rest of the AFL. I haven't put a bet on the actual result. I've just gone with Moneyball. Chad Warner to get more disposals than Jack Crisp. I think Sydney control this game. Chad Warner has been, he was a little bit quiet in that first week, only having 17 touches. But if you look at his form for the rest of the year and compare the pair, well, Chad Warner wins 90% of the time. He had a bad week. He'll have the week to respond. I like him at $2 at Moneyball, 2 units for him to get more disposals than Jack Crisp.
There we go. I could maybe jump in the other way. We'll see what happens, see how we go. Is that all you got for that game?
No, it isn't. I've got something
Cheeky!
before you jump in there and have another cheeky. I could see you reaching for that button. I've gone a 3-leg same game multi just to be a little bit cheeky, and hopefully by then I've had a car. I'm just looking to see who Geelong's going to be playing, so I can just enjoy. And if this gets up, well then Sydney definitely are going to get up, so I'm going to be a happy chappy there. I've gone Chad Warner, anytime goal scorer. Guy averages
all over the Warner.
2.6 shots per game through the year, which is incredible. A little bit inaccurate, so that's a bit tough. Logan McDonald, any-time goal scorer. He is 2.6 shots per game. And then Will Hayward to score 2 or more goals. I love that. That gives me a great odds of $5.50, and I've whacked 1 unit on that.
$5.50, a little bit cheeky, not as cheeky as this.
Cheeky!
I got the other half of my bonus bet here split because I did want to join this with my original $17 odds for Brisbane. So I've just put Sydney 1-39, Jake Lloyd 20 plus disposals, over 134.5 in the alternate, but under the total points of 163.5. So it gives me a little bit of leeway, 29 point little leeway
Buffer,
there.
yep.
I usually give myself at least 5 goals, so I've gone a little bit less, and that gives me $7.02 with the other half of my bonus. So I would have liked to join it all together and
Have
go
odds
up to
about
about
20,
$28 dollars or so, but not to be. But if both of them can get up, that'd be amazing. If only one of them can, that'd be amazing as well, because they're little very cheeky there. So we will see how we go.
I mean, at the end of next week, you'll at least have half a 6-pack of donuts, because there's no chance any of those bets are getting up.
Yep, I can try and sell them to 7-Eleven and see how we go with the
A
Christmas
great
games.
way to launch donut bet for next year.
Oh, beautiful. That's what I'm trying to do in these final series. So hopefully we lose them all.
Yeah, another way to launch our donut bet, ploy and company and success is to follow my multi. I've got my Ned's multi from last week, 2 units. I've just gone the 2 lines, minus 25, minus 22.5, and the Swans minus 17.5. So both the favourites, both to do the job, pretty easy. That gives me odds of $4, and I've junked my bonus bet from Ned's from last week on that one.
Yep, yeah, enjoy that if you want to do that. I don't want Geelong to win, so
Yeah, I know you don't.
Go the Lions. Let's see if we can do it. I've got a mixed multi here, so 2 legs. I didn't want to put the result in the first one because I'm not confident that the Lions win, because I would tip Geelong if I was in like a tipping competition, but I'm just hoping. So I've gone the overs because I did like the overs, 158.5. That's $1.88 there at Ned's. And I've gone 2 legs in the Sydney game. I've gone under 194.5 as an alternate, and the Sydney Swans to win. All up together, that's $3.06. So that's actually a very realistic bet to get up. I'll put 2 units on it, paying over $3. I'm hoping to win that and not in the preliminary final weekend with the 3rd donut.
Yeah, well, I hope you get the donuts, and we talk next week about Geelong beating Sydney.
Well, Geelong can beat Sydney, and I can.
Because it'll just make for good,
I can win that
entertaining radio for us to be head-to-head.
Look, we're either going to have pumped up sauce, a little bit nervous sauce about heading into a grand final with Geelong, or we're going to have a somber sauce about, a big loss.
Yeah, you're going to have some hot sauce, because if we give up this another...
Are you coming next week to record the pod if you lose?
Yeah, of course. Of course, do it every week. I'll just like you, I back up even if we have a bad performance.
That's it.
Accountable.
I do like it. Very accountable. Most accountable over on Twitter, I reckon.
The only person that's accountable. I mean, we could just say that we're going to be bet big, and then when we lose, just chuck up some other bet randomly.
Oh, and we could just bet everything and then just post the ones after the game and be like, oh, this is what I was on. I forgot to post it.
No, we're not about that. So if you like the honest way of tweeting, where can our fans find us?
Oh, Twitter, at Behind the Bow.
Find us at Twitter.
It's always there, definitely. We're on Spotify and iTunes also.
Yeah, make sure you jump on there, leave us a 5-star review, leave a comment. That helps us get to the top of the rankings. Still top 100. And if you search AFL betting, sitting number 2 at the moment.
Number two?
If you go specifically AFL betting, number 2.
What's number 1, or we don't want to promote them?
Nah, screw
All right, you tell me after the show. Come on the interstate clubs, Brisbane and Sydney this week. Get up and about on Pez. Peace out.
We're a little bit struggling there, actually. They're trying to peace out.
I think I'm losing my voice.
You are a little bit. All right, I'm all over the Cats. Best of luck to all your punting for the weekend. I'm still sauce. We'll catch up next time I've done it as well. I'm already a bit nervous. And as always, if you're having a punt, make sure you bet responsibly.